You're listening to Shifting Schools, episode 252. Well, welcome back, folks, and thank you for tuning in to this episode. I'm sorry to say you're stuck with just me today, as Trisha, my co-host, is off doing a workshop session at the moment. Today is the last episode in our STEM Makerspace series, where we talk to Jeff, the CEO of STEM Sports. Again, thank you to Jeff and STEM Sports for being a sponsor of this mini-series. Jeff gets into how STEM Sports was created and how they have a just add students approach to their curriculum. A reminder that you can get a free lesson by visiting the link on our offers page at shiftingschools.com/offers. We want to thank all our guests for being a part of this mini-series. We hope you have enjoyed this dive into STEM and makerspaces the last 5 episodes. If you have a mini-series you would like us to consider, please do reach out to us at info@shiftingschools.com. Now, here is Jeff, the CEO of STEMsports.com. And with that, on with the show. All right, welcome back to another Shifting Schools podcast. I'm so excited to be joined today by President and CEO of STEM Sports, Jeff. It's so great to have you on the podcast. We've already been talking a little bit before we pressed record about how we're both big baseball fans. So anybody who's a baseball fan, be ready for today. There could be some baseball talk here, which you're used to if you listen to this for a long time. So Jeff, thank you again for joining us. I know you're busy with running STEM Sports, but thank you for being a sponsor of this mini-series focused on STEM and makerspaces. And we just wanted to give you an opportunity to come on to the show, talk a little bit more about STEM Sports. And what I'm really interested in is how you got started. How did you kind of come up with this idea of STEM and sports? I mean, if people go over to stemsports.com, you can download kits for baseball and basketball and track. It's just unbelievable what you can do with there. So give us a little bit about the background of how this all got started.
Yeah, well, definitely thanks for having us, Jeff. We appreciate it, and happy to tell the story, which, unfortunately, it's not really mine. In other words, no, yours truly did not come up with the concept of STEM sports. So it was actually created by somebody else. And it's kind of probably easier to tell chronologically. So in 2013, a gentleman named John, who founded STEM Sports, though it's important to note, not until 2016 did he find the company STEM Sports or develop it. In 2013, he was doing some consulting work for USA BMX and their foundation. And they were trying to iterate, kind of what's next? How do we get more kids engaged with the sport of BMX? For those of you that don't know, it's an Olympic sport. You can ride your bike and win a gold medal, right? That's the simplest way to put it. But no, these are actually true athletes that are competing at different levels, and it's an Olympic sport. So I think it was kind of a byproduct of off the downturn of 08, 09. Fast forward a few years later into the 2010s, they were still looking for something to stimulate the growth of the sport. What do we do? And what's trending out there? And so one of the things that John and it's kind of a pseudo partner of his saw was, well, STEM and sports, there's an intersection. I mean, literally, at the end of the day, there's science behind everything. It doesn't matter if it's sports.
Right.
We talk to kids all the time. If one kid's wearing one size shirt and the other kid's wearing the same shirt but a different size, we can talk about the STEM around that, right? I mean, really simplifying it for them. So what John saw was, what if we created a curriculum that used the sport and we were able to develop the STEM around it? And so obviously, and again, bikes and STEM go hand in hand. You can see all that. They created this curriculum, and they had a great amount of success right off the bat by marketing it mostly to schools and school districts where a actual BMX track resided. So for those that don't know the BMX sport, and I'm not even going to claim that I know, half of it, one of the practices is that mom and pops or nonprofits actually own track sites to attract the rider to ride there and be a member with the hopes that they're going to join a team and race, right? It's not much different, say, like, there's a reason there's a baseball field because Little League's trying to attract kids to play baseball. So very similar. And so that was their kind of marketing and strategic plan, was to market the curriculum, in this case, STEM BMX, which came packaged with bikes, and kids had to build the bikes, learn how to ride, the safety around it, how the bike worked. And they had a lot of great success. And that was in 2013. fast forward about 2016, John we've all had these moments. All of a sudden, the giant light bulb went off above his head. He's like, oh my God, why don't I do the same concept and bring this to other NGOs, NGBs, national governing orgs, national governing bodies, and say, hey, we've got this formula for developing a really cool curriculum that uses your sport to help teach kids STEM and propel them into future careers where STEM skills will be needed. And so he got to work and created STEM basketball, though there was no affiliation to USA basketball.
Sure.
And then he created STEM volleyball, and there was an affiliation to USA volleyball. And and I should just back up one little step. So he has this thought, right? And he creates the company STEM Sports, and then he develops these two sports. So STEM Sports was basically created in the middle of 2016, and marketing basketball and volleyball were uniquely different than marketing just BMX. He had to market 50 states, in and out, every nook and cranny, because that's where volleyball and basketball exist. And he called his good friend Jeff, me. I, and still to this day, own a marketing agency called Agency G, and we take on clients very similar to what STEM Sports was. Entities that really were involved in sports, use that as their asset or their tool for marketing, and mostly we were doing marketing communications work for clients as well as event production. And I'll maybe even be able to explain where that comes from, but. John brought the business to me kind of the first working day of 2017, brought STEM Sports, and they were a client. We got to work with them very closely. We get our hands dirty with our clients, kind of the best way I describe what we do, understand the ins and outs and the operations and just really the core, and then obviously the outwardness of what they're providing. And we found that there were lots of things that needed to be corrected or fixed or perfected to really make the business go. And when I took those things back to John, probably by about April, 3-4 months into it, he was really a very busy guy. He was trying to adopt a child with his wife. He's actually an expert in sports tourism business. That's why he kind of plays in the NGO space, and really didn't see, he didn't have the capacity to see STEM Sports through. And I said, well, what if we transfer the ownership over my way? And so long story short would be, I basically, we agreed over that summer for me to acquire it outright from him. And basically the first working day of 2018, it was official. Those things take time, if you will, in a legal sense. I was basically operating as if I owned it probably, in summer of 2017 on.
Sure.
And that's kind of the origin. So that's really the origin of what happened. And so that's why I can't really take credit for the founding of it.
Yeah.
We've definitely developed some sports curricula since that time, beyond that, and are really happy to, one of our, I guess, shining achievements really today is to say that we're in all 50 states. The curriculum is mostly used in the classroom because of its alignment to school standards. We're also heavily involved in after-school programming because that makes for a really, really cool way for kids to engage with sports with this stealthily and disguised manner of academics that they're receiving when they don't really kind of know it, but they do.
Yeah.
But it's well received in the after-school program set, and then certainly in the summers or even fall break camp settings, we're permeating there as well.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the different kits. And you said the volleyball one has sponsorship or affiliation with USA Volleyball. Do you have other kits that have affiliations with some of the maybe national?
Yeah, no, and certainly to correct history. When I inherited the company, that was true. USA Volleyball was affiliated. We've since gone our separate ways. No major issues other than what really our customers really the education system,
right?
Schools, and really at the end of the day, what they really care about is a quality curriculum. Don't get me wrong, USA Volleyball and having their branded name on it was a plus, but it wasn't the necessity or the requirement. And I don't think, looking back, that's necessarily the best path for us.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, there could be a great NGO that says, no, this is what we want. We're going to hang our hat on this. But it just didn't continue that way. And so when I acquired STEM Sports, we acquired STEM basketball and STEM football and soccer and volleyball. So we kind of got off the starting line with those 4 sports. And then since we've added, goodness gracious, 6 more, STEM baseball, STEM golf, STEM lacrosse, STEM softball, and STEM tennis. And hockey is actually close to being, we're actually going to go to a pilot with STEM hockey with several teachers around the country, take it for that test ride, give us back the good, bad, and indifferent, and then we'll publish STEM hockey and make that available in Q1.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about like what do you get in these kits? Like when a school district signs on or a teacher is saying, "Hey, this sounds, this sounds like something for my after school activity or something I can do with my students with STEM." What do you get in the kit?
It's a great question. It's funny because even today I answered that type of question for, we have a distributor we have several distributors, a handful of distributors that sell our products. And so a newer member of one of our distributor teams was asking those types of questions. I think I know everything, but just tell me everything. And then I was even talking to a STEM leader in the Chicago Public Schools, very similar questions. So, well, first and foremost, we, akin to the Bible, our Bible is our curriculum manual, which is really, that's our foundation. And so there you're talking about 8 lessons aligned to grade bands, whether it be a K2 grade band, a 3-5 grade band, or a 6-8. We only actually have one K2 product. It's called a multi-sport for kindergarten, first and second. Everything else we do by sport, or if it's a multi-sport, is designated for 3-5 and 6-8. And those lessons are actually bundled in the same manual. So when you buy that, when a school or what have you buys that, they're getting both grade bands. And what you're getting there is you're getting a 5E lesson sequence, actually 6E, which we can get more into the weeds when we talk about what that is. But that's our sequence of lesson framework that we utilize. You get all of that content that is aligned to standards. So the objectives have a purpose. And there's physical activity, right? Because we're sports. And so everything kind of is built off of that. But to talk about the more tangible items, we build kits that wind up being turnkey so that when they land in the classroom, the teacher really doesn't have any more burden. That was very important. Another thing I can't really take credit for, but the crux of the business when STEM sports was developed and that concept of the turnkey was developed, we really, John and whatnot, and we absolutely agree with this. We didn't want a burden to happen to the teacher. We already know enough about them, right? Generally speaking, they're underpaid. Often they're using their own money to outfit their classroom. And also the burden that they're under is tremendous. And so we wanted ease to come through. So we know the school or the school district or the after school program is usually the funding source.
Sure.
It's not the burden of the teacher. So in the box, if you will, the kit lands in that classroom. We basically say, open the box, add students. So let's use, pick a sport. I can maybe helpfully describe what kind of comes in that.
Let's do basketball.
Okay, basketball. Oh, I thought you might go baseball. We can always go there. Basketball is a really good one because it really is comprehensively robust. And it has items in there where you get people's heads cranking on, huh? Why are there hair dryers inside of your basketball kit? And thankfully, this is a video or a podcast, not a video cast. I often joke that, well, because we don't want kids playing with wet hair. No. Yeah. Rather, most students know what's inside of an inflated fill in the blank, athletic piece. And obviously in a basketball, we all know that there's air in there. Mm-hmm. There's hair dryers in there so the kids can actually conduct experiments and heat the ball up to understand what changes about its makeup, right? What does change? Well, at the molecular level, which they'll learn, when you heat up air and the air molecules, they get crazy and they want to get out of there and they want to bounce around, inflating the ball, making the ball harder. And then if you do the converse, we don't supply the ice and the water, but we encourage in that same experiment to plunge a inflated basketball in ice water. And what happens then? Kind of the opposite, softens. So going back to the original question, so we supply, our full kits come with 5 indoor basketballs, 5 outdoor basketballs, hair dryers, tape measures, stopwatches, pieces of basketball. Looking around my desk, we actually cut our balls into little swatches.
Oh, cool.
So kids can understand what these things are made of. Again, most you talk to know that there's air inside, but when you do, I know no one can see me, but if you do the hand test and you actually put 2 fingers together, and we ask kids, how thick do you think this ball is? An inflated ball. you get some pretty wide-ranging guesses.
Yeah.
And sometimes they in a way, it's kind of ludicrous to think about how thick they think the ball is.
Yeah.
Even though they know there's air in there. And then
Sure.
when you really realize it, it's kind of like a leather jacket that's got a construct that makes it stay in that round shape when inflated. So kids will see the indoor ball swatches, the outdoor ball swatches. We have calipers so kids can measure, because they're doing a lot of data collection,
Yeah.
not only in STEM basketball, but in a lot of our programs. To really, really get into that cognitive. We're really asking them questions that they probably haven't really thought or considered, but the curriculum takes them there, almost metacognitive. We're really going pretty deep, making them think about things they haven't really thought about before and giving them the tools to do that. So they're using calipers to measure the difference between the thickness of a regular indoor ball to an outdoor ball and explain what they're seeing and understanding. And then worksheets, going back to that curriculum. There's a worksheet application with just about every single lesson. These worksheets might mean that they're using them for data collection. There's really no right or wrong answer. They're going to go out and maybe drop a basketball at different heights to understand gravity and force. Some people call that dribbling. I've never heard of that. We call that force and gravity. That's how we see it. Or the worksheets are used for them to write down their hypothesis on why things are the way they are. And sometimes there's some right or wrong answers that they're going to actually need to put their answers to those questions. We even provide the keys to these worksheets so that teachers have a little construct or understanding of where the kids should be, especially if it's data collection. They may not know exactly where they should wind up with some of that collection. So we provide that.
I love it. And the idea of turnkey is so huge, as a former teacher myself. I mean, it was always nice when you didn't have to do the thinking, when the basketballs were there and the hair dryers were there, and you just, like you said, insert students and start having some fun and be able to go through it. So that's fantastic. You mentioned that you have one that is for early childhood, and we'll make sure in the show notes to the episode that we link specifically to a great blog post that was written over on STEM Sports blog about the early years education. Can you maybe talk about why that is so important in getting STEM into the early years from your perspective?
Yeah, when we talk about the history of STEM sports, you can make a case that we were kind of like as 3rd through 8th grade, like that was kind of our niche, and I'll be totally honest, I don't really come from the education space. Luckily, Sean Barton on my team really fills that gap and beyond. So I think didn't take long for him to say, hey, I think that there's a K2 program that really should be had. And he dug in pretty deep, and we got some other people involved to kind of look at, is that something we should target? Because I think, almost like you stated, Jeff, like, why would we go so early? Because, on the other side of the flip of the coin, people have asked us, hey, are you going to do high school? And we may very well do that. But I actually think our sweet spot is K8. And while I only have one program for K1-2, what I've learned is, and again, I'm the novice at this. I'm not going to explain that I'm no education or even, have been trained in this. I certainly didn't go to school for it. What we found was, yes, that the folks we brought in thought that it's a great place to start. There's no harm in beginning the STEM literacy at those young ages. Don't get me wrong, it's K1-2 is going to be different from 3-5 and 6-8, right? There's obviously scaling up. Well, what we try to do mostly is engage students in a couple different manners at K first and second. One, spatial awareness, understanding space and their place in it, and simplifying it for those kids. Now, for an example, in 3, 4th, and 5th grade students, if you ask them how tall a basketball rim is, you probably get a lot of flippant different answers.
Yeah.
Because their spatial awareness hasn't really completely been addressed.
Right.
In a way, you can make a case, okay, well, why would you start at K2? Well, for that reason. I mean, simply. Yeah. So what we found is we've got a simple lesson of playing catch with a tape measure between two students and figuring out where the optimum space is and driving that space quotient to the student. So if the tape measure is literally expanded 6 feet between them and they're adequately playing catch throwing the ball well, catching the ball well, back and forth, and either growing or shrinking it. And we're not saying it's good or bad, but they discover something. And then obviously, and I don't want to be framed in saying good teachers. Teachers would then identify what 5 and 6 feet means. What else is 5 or 6 feet? So that they identify that the next time they're in a different space.
I love that.
So spatial awareness is a really big platform that we definitely utilize in our K2 program. Not saying that's all of it, but that's one piece. And then movements, there's definitely some movements that we eloquate in that so that kids are understanding that as well. Great question for Sean on my team, less so for me. But I think the overarching is that we're introducing terminology, understanding, making a little bit of a cognitive, thing for those students, and so that down the road, it'll enhance that. They'll retain it too, because we definitely think sports is the element that helps that retaining. The next time they play, hopefully they're going to understand the space. Next time it's on television or they go to a sporting event, they can probably do a really good a good amount of recall about their own touch point when they worked with our K2 kid as an example. But then I think if you really had to go, why start so early? Because it's adopting them and merging them into those 21st century skills that undoubtedly they're going to run into when they go to those upper grades and third up. Yeah. So now it's about this collaboration skills and working as a team with other kids, problem solving for sure, but hopefully doing it together and collective, and then starting to think about things, and dare I say, in a critical manner down the road. So it's that introduction to it that will make, maybe the third grade kid that went through K2, right, is able to answer that the basketball rim is 10 feet high and they understand what that means.
Yeah, that spatial awareness thing. I mean, there's so many great little skills like that. I think that a lot of times we overlook when we talk about, STEM, and of course sports is, kids running around all the time playing stuff. We want that. We want kids to be physical. And that's one of the things that I've loved about the modules that I've seen is we're getting kids out of their desks. We're getting kids outside playing with hair dryers, dropping basketballs, playing catch. Like, we're getting kids movement in the classroom, which is something that is huge as well.
Yeah.
I just want to remind everyone who's listening to this, again, STEM Sports is a sponsor of this mini series on STEM. And when you click on the link in our show notes, it'll actually take you over to the STEM Sports website where you can actually request a free sample from one of their STEM kits. So I'm over there on the website right now and I'm looking like there's STEM baseball. You can request a sample lesson from STEM basketball. Like, you get to go get your free lesson as part of the sponsorship. So I want to thank STEM Sports again for that. Jeff, if there was one module in one kit that was your favorite, what module would that be? Oh
man, that's a great question. There really are a lot. I mean, I know we've been talking a little bit about basketball. It's funny. I used to work in Major League Baseball for 2 different franchises, and for so long we didn't have STEM baseball. So my friends were like, "You're like Mr. Baseball. Why don't you have baseball?" Why is that happening? What's my favorite? Oh goodness, that's such a challenge. There's a basketball lesson when I first took over the company and we were just a little bit pants on fire, right? And so and we inherited things. We inherited a lesson, which still exists today. We've rewritten all of our curriculum, by the way, so we're kind of not, if you will, volume 2 stage, especially with basketball. There was a lesson called shot tracking, and there was an application, literally a digital application. And boy, I haven't thought about this. I'm going to forget the name of the app, but the app was like a shot tracker where you could, let's just say you were running a youth team, and one of your kids named Jeff was making taking shots. You could mark the makes and misses and get some percentages out of that.
Yeah.
We'll get a call one day from a school right in the middle of the day. Hey, Jeff, STEM Sports, we're calling because the app doesn't work. Really, we all stop what we're doing. We take our stuff very seriously. And we're all panicking. Oh my God, the app doesn't work. And again, it was a third party to us. So we didn't we really hadn't established the relationship with them as the preceding, group had. So we were calling them and they weren't responding and we were panicking. Oh my God, what do we do? And it's funny to look back. Well, the byproduct of that came that we started searching on the App Store for another app that could work. And we found one, and it's called Home Court.
Okay.
And I absolutely, listeners, use if you're an iOS user, so you're an Apple phone user, it's a free app called Home Court. There's definitely paid platforms with it. It's definitely a free one, and it's amazing. So what it does is it uses your camera, and what you would do is if you're at an actual NBA arena court, or if you have a basket barely hanging on the front of your house.
Yeah.
Once you shine the app at your backboard, it instantly recognizes through VR your court, and as you start taking baskets, if you're a youngster or an adult, it will tell you if you're shooting a free throw, a field goal, or a 3-pointer.
Wow.
It'll record these shots. It will give you all the data, right? The math, if you will, and percentages. And upper levels, it will record your shot. It'll tell you how high you jump on your jump shot. And then you can look at it, and you can actually review. So it's a trainer in the end of the day.
Very cool.
There's some NBA folks that are behind this thing. And so we called them. We said, can we use your app? And at first it was like, well, who are you? What are you?
Yeah, right.
Luckily, the marketing gentleman, and Alex, who I spoke with, they wound up giving us permission. I think his wife was a teacher. He got it. And I said, listen, I don't think we're going to be a heyday for you, but we'll drive some different traffic your way because it's going to be attached to one of our lessons. And one of the lessons is really about tracking and figuring out your own field goal percentage, just like LeBron James and Steph Curry have. Any kid can have a field goal percentage just like them. And when a teacher presents it that way, your students are in. Oh, I'll go do that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right.
So, obviously the first round of that would be go take 10 shots and do the math. Okay?
Right.
Basically. And what I challenge teachers is, hey, have the kids go out and take 13 shots. Make the math a little more complicated. But all the while, they get to do it in the fundamental analog sense, but they also have this really cool app called Home Court. I've taken Home Court, not around the world, but I've gone international a couple times, in Mexico twice, and I was in Morocco. And I put my phone on a tripod, and I would show the kids this. It would blow their minds, right? Yeah. For all the right reasons.
Right.
And often what I try to tag that with is somebody thought that this could be very useful and thought about it up here and made it happen on a phone. Yeah. Think about a problem that you could solve and what you would do to solve it. That's exactly how Home Court came to be.
Yeah.
I think Jeremy Lin, if I have the story right, Jeremy Lin was actually someone that was in the ear of this company saying, I can't always have somebody record me shooting. How do I do it on my own? I want to extend my professional basketball career. So that's kind of where that came from.
Well, and I think it's so, you can watch any sport on television now and see how the technology in STEM has taken over. We were talking, we're both, big baseball guys. And as soon as every time you get done taking an at bat, you watch them run down into the dugout, and they've got every pitch on replay. They've got the way that they were approaching that pitch on replay. And we know, especially in baseball, we keep statistics on everything. We know how many times you pull your batting gloves on before you actually grab the bat. We know everything in baseball, So I love that. I think that's a part of it. And I love the idea too of starting with these small numbers. And one of the things that we know that the technology does is, like you're saying, it's easy to figure out your shooting percentage when you take 10 shots. But it gets harder when you take 573 shots and then you get 1,015 shots. So this is where technology, right? Once you understand and you can set up the algorithm or you set up the equation, you let technology do the heavy lifting for you. But you have to understand what that is in order to set it up.
The baseline.
That all starts with this.
It's foundational, right?
Yeah.
And for a youngster, that helps them, right? And almost goes back to that K2 thing. If you can plant a seed, so that they're prepared for those incremental steps.
Yeah, I love that. That's some great connections. Yep. Well, as you know, we're recording this and launching this in the new year here in 2023. Can you kind of maybe talk about what are some of the things that are coming from STEM sports in the new year?
Yeah, we're not done, right? So I think I mentioned before, we're working on hockey as we speak, STEM hockey. Yep. It'll have a lesson that talks about ice, and really what that means, the science of ice. But yet at the same time, we also know not every school can just go play hockey on ice. It's
right.
There's a field hockey element, or I'm sorry, a street hockey element. So it's a little more playable on the playground, or certainly inside of a gymnasium. So look for that. That's coming soon. No secrets. We'll probably take our STEM tennis program and really look at it strongly and say, okay, let's make a pickleball version of this. We know kind of how that permeation is kind of coming from the older audience, but it's definitely leaking its way down to the young audience, and we think that's great. So we're excited about developing that. There are other sports that maybe aren't as prevalent in our country, because we have our international phone does ring quite often, where there's a wonton for us to explore some of the other sports that, again, aren't big in the States. That might happen. Curriculum that has wheels, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
It's probably in 2023 scope as well. So,
great. And
even bowling. We've actually had some overtures on bowling. Again, I can tell you about some overtures we've had for sports that we're not going to do. But bowling is definitely something we'll look at, because it's still an achievable, definitely a lot of STEM around that.
Yeah.
But achievable without, going down to the proverbial bowling alley.
Right.
There's still an application in the PE side, and certainly in classroom and on the campus. We've had to break the news to USA Fencing. It's not likely. We've had a gentleman who ardently thought that every school should have a STEM billiards program.
Yes.
I think he thought that every teacher's lounge had a
pool table.
I'm not sure. And we've also, and who knows, there's other sports, no doubt. Like we've definitely talked about wrestling. We've even heard from gymnastics, some of the other martial arts, because there are STEM applications, and we wholeheartedly see that. And so it may be a place we might look at. At the end of the day, we want that to be there to be take, right? So we want the schools to tell us, and the education systems to tell us what they're looking for.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. I love that. And, part of it is, I think, as well, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you're creating these kits that are, ready to be done, right? Like we just add students. So take hockey, for example. It's really hard to, package up a Zamboni machine for every school and ship it over for kids to go and learn how a Zamboni machine works. So there are some limitations that you have to have. Yeah,
of course we inquired, but you're right. The price didn't fit in the kit.
Yeah, it didn't fit in the kit. Yeah, I just couldn't fit it in the kit.
But I do believe, and I should know this better, but I think there is a Zamboni. There's beyond a reference. I mean,
probably.
On that ice lesson, we're going to talk about, why, what's that machine doing and why?
Yeah, I love that.
It's certainly STEM related.
Yeah, that's so great. That's so great. Well, Jeff, thank you again for taking some time to talk about STEM sports with us. Again, you can head over to stemsports.com, or if you click on that link in our show notes or over at Shifting Schools on our offer page, you will get a special link that'll let you download a free sample lesson over on STEM Sports. You can do that as well. So thank you for taking some time to chat with us today, to tell us the history behind STEM sports, where you're going. Congratulations on your growth, all 50 states. Such a great program. Anytime, we really focus on this at Shifting Schools. Anytime we can help teachers by taking a load off, we call them plug and play resources, where you open up the packet and it's good stuff. You're going to engage kids and just give yourself some space to spend time with your kids and do the fun stuff, with hair dryers and basketballs and all of the fun stuff. That's what we're about. Yeah, so we really appreciate you.
And it still has a very, very meaningful outcome for what the teachers really are supposed to get to with their students. Yeah. So,
well, thank you so much for your time. Again, that's stemsports.com. You will find it all over the Shifting Schools website and everywhere else as we continue on this mini series with STEM and makerspaces in the classroom. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks so much, Jeff.